What is a hero? A mythological figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability? An illustrious warrior? No. It's a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, one who shows great courage. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast, where we dive deep into what a hero is and what makes them that hero. I'm your host, Ken Frownfelter, and I'm going to be introducing you to some of the world's most likely and unlikely heroes. You may have never heard of them before, and they most likely have never met you. But they all have one thing in common. They are ready to do whatever it takes to help make you better, even if it means sacrificing everything for you. Let's get into it.
This is episode 72 of the What's a Hero podcast with me, Ken Frownfelter. After spending the winter holed up in Cambridge, General George Washington was determined to drive the British from Boston. One morning when the redcoats there awoke, they were shocked to find that the hills looking down on Boston were bristling with cannon. Washington was throwing down the gauntlet, his guns poised to blow the enemy to kingdom come. The British chose not to fight. They evacuated 10,000 men and 200 warships. Boston was free, without a shot being fired. But what the British didn't know was that Washington's gambit was an enormous bluff. Despite the awesome display of force, he lacked one key ingredient to back it up: gunpowder. Washington was so short on gunpowder that his army would have been able to throw only a few shots at the British before retreating. So severe, in fact, was the colonial powder shortage that the British could have easily taken Washington's army and crushed the nascent rebellion any time during the previous 6 months. If only they had known, the American history that we know today might have taken a very different turn. Washington may have lacked gunpowder, but he proved to have something more important: the nerve and audacity that would be needed to see the revolution through to the finish. See, gunpowder was in such short supply because the British had long discouraged its manufacture in the colonies. The problem was eventually eased by importing large quantities from French traders. But even 5 years later, just before the Battle of Yorktown, Washington's supply of powder was reported to be in a wretched and palsied state. So to maintain a post within musket shot of the enemy for 6 months together without powder is more than probably ever was attempted, is what George Washington said. And so these are things that you got to think about, that, you know, when we say things, we do things, or you see something that is coming your way or that is showing up on your doorstep as a thing that is causing you some kind of stress or bother or anything like that, you have to just say, you know what, I'm going to do this because this is what I know to do, because it's the right thing to do. The colonials knew what they were doing. They knew they had to fight the British to take over it, to keep our country. And so we have the America that we have today. Basically, what they did was they owned it. They owned the fact that this is their country, and they're not going to be told what to do by a tyrant that lives thousands of miles away, who's going to come over and just tell them, you will live this way. No, we're free men, and we will live like a free men that we are, which is the America that I know, and I hope you know today. Well, with that, I have a guest on today who actually wrote a book called Own It. He explains that just being the person that has that internal, how you say, ownership, that internal thing that says, no, that's not the right way to do it. We're going to do it the right way. Basically, integrity. Basically, that value that we hold in, that we do what's right because it's the right thing to do. And it's something that people have. A lot of people don't use it. A lot of people just say, hey, I'm going to do whatever I can to get by, or to get one up on somebody else, or something along those lines. However, that's not the case today with our guest, who is a paramedic and firefighter, wrote the book, like I said, called Own It. And I'd like to welcome Ryan Rodriquez to the What's a Hero podcast. How are you doing, sir?
Doing really good. Thanks, man. I appreciate coming on. Absolutely.
You're more than welcome to do so. And, you know, I couldn't be happier that you're here. And I think it's cool that you're willing to come out. I know you said you've been working crazy hours and you work double shift, all this good stuff. And now you're sitting here trying to get on having to be on a podcast. And that's what we're hoping for, is those guys who are just doing the job, that doing the things, making sure people are okay, helping people out, serving other people so they can live their life all right. And then trying to get in their stories and trying to get in their information just so they can motivate and inspire other people in the process. And I think it's super cool that you are willing to do that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it is definitely something that drives me. Being a firefighter paramedic has been incredibly rewarding. It's allowed me to, live my interview, live the principles of integrity that I focus on, meaningful operation. I like to operate on these particular principles. And so this role really allows me to do that. So I'm really grateful to do that. But yeah, like you said, I came off a 48-hour shift this morning. I'm actually going to be teaching an EMT class later this evening. So it's kind of like sandwich. My day off isn't really my day off, but no, right. I'm glad to be here. This is awesome, dude.
Right. Yeah. That's how it goes. If you do get a full day off where you get to go home with your family or something like that, that's sometimes it's a rare thing. Like, wow,
yeah.
What do I do with all this time? Yeah.
Yeah. A little, yeah. Like, what am I know I'm supposed to be doing something. What am I supposed to be doing?
Right. So who, I know you're down in the Southwest. You like being hot down there, and I think you said it was around 112 or something like that, and that is nowhere near anywhere I want to be visiting right away. But know that there's air conditioner aplenty, I'm assuming, down there, so we don't have to worry about that too much.
True.
Yeah. So who is Ryan Rodriquez? How did he grow up? Who's little Ryan that he probably got in trouble a bunch or tried to do some things and mom was worried about him getting hurt or whatever? Who was this little guy? What did he do?
So I grew up in a very middle class, borderline poverty level home. Education wasn't particularly something that was held up in my home. Like both of my parents, my dad served in the military. He was in the Army. And my mom just kind of had jobs. And when I was 4, they divorced. And so my mom wound up raising me as a single parent. My dad struggled with some alcohol and addiction problems, which landed him in prison for quite a while. But ultimately, my parents provided me with good examples. Now, whether or not it was what not to do or things that I could improve upon,
right?
That's another story. Sure. But I do give them the credit for working hard, for trying their best, and ultimately just doing right by me. Mm-hmm. But I do have an older brother. He's about a year and a half older than me, so it was definitely the situation where I was like the runt, got picked on and whatnot. But it did toughen me up. And I was kind of like the white sheep of the family,
really?
And so growing up, I really kind of immersed myself in reading and comic books. And, so now that all these Marvel films are coming out, it's like my dream come true. Right. The Infinity Saga is like my dream come true. So that's been pretty amazing, but, I can do a deep dive on that anytime. But so I really was able to try to ask myself the questions of what kind of man do I want to be? What kind of father do I want to be? Mm-hmm. What kind of person do I want to be in society when I grow up? And my dad, I love my dad. And he did his best, but at the same time, he provided me with good examples of what really not to do.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of sad, but there were moments where he was a great father. And there were moments where I could tell he was struggling, and we all have our own demons that we deal with, and he had his. But it was something that really helped me delineate like where my current experience was versus where I wanted to be. And so I grew up in like the public education system here just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. And I wound up becoming the first in my family to not only graduate high school with a diploma, but to attend the university. So I went right into, actually, I went to Mesa Community College, like the local community college, for a couple of years. And I earned my associate's degree in fire science. And at the time when I was growing up, I didn't really have like family members. I wasn't like a legacy kid. You know, I didn't have family in the fire service or public safety.
Right.
Yeah. Or anything like that. And so the question remained like, well, what do I want to do with my life during my senior year? And I had the option to graduate early, a semester early, or split that in half and go, you know, for 3 hours in the morning and then have my afternoon totally open. And at the time I was working a part-time job, but I had all this time in between then. And I was like, you know what? I feel like I need to fill that time with something. And so, you know, kind of like you had mentioned, you know, we feel kind of guilty just sitting around doing nothing.
Right.
But,
right.
So I looked into the local technical school, and the East Valley Institute of Technology was offering a firefighting class. And I was like, oh man, you know, I don't need the credits. This is just kind of purely for interest. This sounds fun. And so I signed up for that. And the minute I started taking those classes, I was like, this is it. Like, this is the path that I am going to take.
That's what you wanted to do, huh? Were you kind of aimless going through school? Did you really have no idea what you wanted to do, or do you have kind of an idea, or what?
Well, it was interesting because my father was a draftsman by trade. He was a civil engineer and did a lot of drafting for like the city of Phoenix. And so I kind of wanted to follow that footsteps. I was really into art and architecture. And so I studied that a lot. And I thought I was going to go into architecture, designing homes, you know, drawing blueprints and whatnot. And that was super fun to me. I had done a bunch of different art shows in high school and won some awards and won some art shows. And growing up, I had kind of like a natural ability to draw. And so it was very appealing to me. But at the time, you know, I graduated in 99. And at the time we were making that big transition to computers. So computer aided design,
right? Computer
aided drafting. And I really liked holding that pen in my hand and like drawing it on paper.
Right.
I just really liked that. And so it really like lit my fire. And after I realized, like, you know, I just am not really interested in like the computer aided stuff as much as the handwritten stuff.
Oh yeah.
I liked working with my hands. I liked being creative in that way. But I felt like the firefighting thing was such a like a divergent thing for me that I was like, you know what? Let's try it. Like, this seems like a real challenge. Like, let's try it out and see how it goes. And it really spoke to me in that one of my favorite quotes growing up was, or is to this day, civilize the mind, but make savage the body. And it's one of my favorite samurai quotes or proverbs. And it literally spoke to both ends of that. You know, I was able to learn the science behind fire suppression, learn the science behind emergency medical services, things like that. But then at the same time, I can get dressed up in turnouts with a 50-pound air pack on my back and kick a door down and like do a physical search for victims. And so it really spoke to both of those ends. And from then on, I just had like stars in my eyes, and I was like, this is it. This is what I'm doing.
That's all I want to do. I want to be a firefighter, and I want to go do that. That's really cool. And so how old were you?
So at the time I was just in my senior year of high school. So I was 17.
Wow. You got that bug, that, no pun intended, but that fire lit early.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I got ignited, one could say.
Yeah. And so you do that, you go and you started doing everything you could to try to get into fire service at that point, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, I didn't really have an in. And so I had to really navigate things on my own. And I had learned that, trying to obtain a career in the fire service was very grueling. It was like a gauntlet, And for those of you who are in public safety and PD, you understand how this is. Like, you take a written test, and then, if you pass it, then you do a physical test. If you pass that, then you do an interview. And if they like you, they'll invite you to the academy. And then hopefully you're successful through that. And then you get offered the job.
Right.
It's pretty grueling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'd spend years, 18 to 25, just testing and refining myself and trying to learn how to better improve myself so that each time I tested, I could become more and more successful down the line. And eventually I got picked up full time at the age of 25. And so, that's what I've been doing since then. So it's been amazing.
And I guess I'm assuming during that time you were talking to anybody you can talk to, getting to know all these guys that you were hoping to work with. And was it all in the same area, or did you consider outside of your area, testing for other departments outside of, the Phoenix area or even Arizona?
Right.
Or
no, yeah, I was open to anyone who would have me.
Yeah.
I was asking questions to everyone I could about any little thing I could learn. It was just like a complete exercise in humility, just asking questions. And eventually I got to the point where I became comfortable with, I don't want to say comfortable with failure, but comfortable in accepting those letters of, thanks, but no thanks. I was able to take that instead of just being crushed by it every time. I was able to take it and look at it as, okay, well, what can I improve upon? Like, what is it that they might have seen that didn't shine as bright as they wanted to?
Right.
Or whatnot.
Yeah.
So it was a really great experience and kind of set the tone for the rest of my life in regards to how I operate, with the idea of continual improvement. So that was really beneficial for me.
And, that's pretty cool that you had that opportunity to do that, pick the brains of all these guys around you that you're hoping to work with that knew the stuff. Did you get to that point where you were just that annoying kid? Oh my gosh, that kid never leaves, that sort of thing? Were you ever that
right?
guy?
Yeah. I feel like in some cases I was, because I was trying to do ride-alongs and trying to they say that obtaining a career in the fire service is about who you know.
Yeah.
And I really think that it's about who knows you. I think it's like, who knows the real you? Like, who knows you as a person? Because you can get people who can, BS their way through an interview. They can pass a didactic test. But ultimately, it comes down to, can I be this guy's roommate? Do I want this guy as my roommate for the next 20 to 30 years?
Right. Can I trust this guy to back me up if need be? Is this guy gonna make us all look bad? Does this guy have that thing that's gonna just taint our profession or whatever the case may be?
Is he the real deal?
Yeah. And I think all the service professionals look at that, and I don't care what it is. I mean, I think everybody that we talk to on here, from police officers, firefighters, and nurses and teachers and everything else like that, they're looking at that thing where they can say, hey, am I going to tarnish this reputation of everybody and not just me? And that's a huge deal that's a huge weight to bear. And if the people that do it, as they're getting to know you and they're trying to figure out, are you a good fit? If you are that one that's going to, taint our profession, do we want you actually in here? Or are you fixable?
They take such a gamble.
Yeah.
Yeah. They take such a gamble on you, and you can't help but want to make sure that you're doing right by them.
Yeah. Yeah. So you go and you become a firefighter. You start it, you're hitting it. You get through fire academy and you go through all these different things, being able to use your fire science degree and all that good stuff. And you just start doing the job, right? And was it super easy and there was no challenges, or? Well, I'm guessing
So-
that's how it always goes, right?
Yeah, it's totally easy. Yeah, the only way is through, right?
Right.
Uh, so I got my 2-year associates at the local community college, and then I transferred to Arizona State University.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went there, I was able to earn my 4-year or my bachelor's degree in fire service management, which actually worked out real well because I really believe in doing things on the front end.
Sure.
Like, I don't want to be the guy who gets hired on and then after 20 years is like, oh, I want to promote. I better whip out my bachelor's degree or do what I can to squeeze that in somehow and
Right.
sacrifice here and there. And so I really wanted to hit the ground running in that. And so I went to ASU. I graduated in 2004 with a bachelor's in fire service admin, which is basically like their version of the business degree, but just with a focus on fire service.
Oh, okay.
So that was really awesome for me because it put me in the room with those guys who had already been in the fire service for years.
Yeah.
But were looking to promote.
Just looking for to make sure they can get all the boxes checked so they can move to the next level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of guys who had been working in the fire service for years and then wanted to either promote to captain or battalion chief. And so I was just this like young kid, I was was like 2004. So I was like 23 and I was in the room with like battalion chief candidates and captain candidates. And so it really helped me like gain perspective because I was like in the room and I just was quiet.
Right.
I took notes. I learned as much as I could. I observed and tried to absorb everything I could. And then tried to use that to better my situation, but also make myself more of an asset to the organization that was willing to take that chance on me.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. And so obviously you made that impression enough.
Yeah.
By getting to know those guys, then being able to see, oh, hey, this guy's not egotistical or whatever. And he's trainable, he's pliable, he's willing to work and he's not like the rest of us who's younger and he doesn't ache and have aches and pains everywhere because he's
yeah. I was just coming out of the gate. Yeah, I was trying to my whole goal was to try to bring as much as I could to the table for whatever organization was willing to put their trust and faith in me. And so I was like, guys, if you just let me wear your shirt, I will bring, the associate's degree, the bachelor's degree. I'm bringing this not as a way to like show you how great I am, but show you what I'm willing to submit to contribute to the organization, to contribute to the culture, all of that stuff. So,
right.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So you get that, you get your bachelor's and you go back to work. And were you working for some of the guys that were in your class?
It's funny because, I actually wound up, there was a guy in my cohort and he was at the time looking to promote to battalion chief. He was a captain and he was looking to promote to battalion chief. And I didn't know that's where I was going to end up. I was just trying to throw my hat in every ring that I could.
Right.
And, I was testing for Phoenix. I was testing for Gilbert, which is the town that I live in. I was trying to test for like every department that I could. And it helped with like giving me the experience of testing and interviewing. But, I had no idea ultimately where I was going to end up. And I had those ideal organizations that I wanted to work for. But ultimately I was like, if you're willing to take a chance on me and give me that shirt, then I'll go to the wall for you. Like, I don't care.
That's cool. That's cool.
So I actually wound up working for the organization that battalion chief candidate in my cohort works for.
Yeah.
And so I've been there ever since. That's where I've been.
And
since then
did he get it?
And he's retired and he went through, we both successfully graduated with that degree. And he, like I said, he since has retired, but I learned a lot from him. And it was pretty crazy in that like I would go to work, and at the time he was a captain, but then, like I said, he got promoted to battalion chief. And so I came in as the new guy, right? The probie.
Right.
And I had that connection that I had established previously to getting hired, that, I know him personally and kind of professionally in an educational sense. And so we had that relationship, and some guys were looking at me like, well, who the hell does this guy think he is? But there were other guys who were looking at me like, wow, this guy's willing to do the hard work on the front end. That's the type of guy I want on my crew.
Right.
And so that ideally is what I was trying to purvey is, and the question, I've been doing this for 17 years. And the question that I ask myself every day is, am I being the firefighter that I would want on my crew? Like, am I fit?
Right.
Am I reading the right books? Am I treating people right? Am I a good roommate? Like, am I cleaning up after myself? Because I don't want that guy on my truck. I don't want him on my station.
Sure.
So these, that was the question and motivation that like I go by today. So it really set the tone for my whole career.
And that's cool. That's cool. You don't get to see that too often, and having that other side. I mean, because a lot of people are just looking out for number one, like we said before. And,
right.
And if you can be that guy, like, I want to look at it like this, in this way, that am I the guy that I want to work with? And if I don't want to be that, if I don't want to be the guy that people want to work with, if I'm not going to be that guy, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And I think that's a really good way to look at things. So you're doing that. You get in there, you start working for this guy, you start working for all these people, and you get to be the fireman that you thought, and it was everything you thought it was going to be. Once you started figuring it out and working into it and all that stuff like that, or were there?
Yeah,
I mean, obviously there's always downsides to, people are people, and people have bad days and they're jerks or whatever on this day or whatever. But for the most part, people are good and they want to try to do what's right. Correct?
Yeah. And honestly, like, you can think of the biggest dirtbag on your organization. Like, when it comes to public safety, you can think of the person who epitomizes, like, oh, that guy is just, I don't want to be anything like that guy. But when you boil it down, like, that guy and you have something in common in that you both worked hard to meet the minimum requirements, which the physical minimum requirements for this job are pretty intense.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can be a lazy guy and get this career,
Yeah.
So you have to be driven in that sense. And not only that, but like, you have to have a genuine desire to serve and help people. And at the very basic minimum, if I have that in common with the person who I might look at and think, oh, that guy, is totally doesn't deserve to work here or whatever, when pride comes in and ego comes in, at the very basilar level, we have those two things in common, that we hold to a physical standard and that we just want to help people, ultimately.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, and you can be totally different people, or you can be, jerk or whatever. But if you have those the minimum whys answered, I think you're still you're going to be able to get the job done. You're going to be able to focus on the mission, and then you're going to be able to. You don't have to spend your days off with him. You don't have to spend all the time with him in the world. You can just, all right, we'll agree to disagree about that. But,
right.
But we both know that we're going to put our turnouts on. We're going to go out. We're going to put our gear on, and we're going to attack that fire, or we're going to go bust that door in, or we're going to go save the baby, or we're going to go, lift assist somebody. It doesn't matter, It could be the bare minimum. So I think that's really cool that you have that.
And it's
that
a weird
attitude.
dichotomy too, because it's like, I might be able to trust you with my life, but I might not be able to trust you with my wife.
Yes.
And
yes.
so therein lies like a deeper level of culture, right?
Yeah.
Of trust and integrity and all that stuff. And literally that's honestly what inspired the book that I launched last month, is that same principle. Like, I want to be able to trust you with my life and my wife. Like, I want the whole thing. And there's nothing that says that we can't have that. We just put in some work. So,
right. So you're going through that. And how long have you been, I guess total, how many years have you been a firefighter or paramedic now?
So this will be 17 years now.
So 17 years now. And over that time, you start seeing, I mean, from the time you're early 20s, or I guess 25, right? You said?
Yeah, 24, yeah.
During that time, from then till now, you start seeing not only yourself grow, the way you're thinking about things, how your mindset is, the angles you're looking at things at, but you're starting to see growth in yourself, growth in the people you work with, and you're seeing some changes going on just in character and character development and things like that.
Yeah.
What exactly were you seeing, and at what point did you start seeing yourself as a valuable member in your own eyes, that you said, hey, I got this, and I'm the thing that kind of tipped you over that edge to know that you are doing what you're doing the right way because you know what to do?
Well, that's a great question. And basically, I kind of give my dad a lot of credit in this, in that he taught me how to observe, and he might not have done it proactively, but he taught me how to observe like the situation.
Right.
And I was able to kind of delineate who I wanted to be. Like, I choose not to drink alcohol because that destroyed my family.
Mm-hmm.
It killed my cousin. My cousin was killed by a DUI, a drunk driver. And so like, these are hard lines in my life that were set early on, that now that I set those standards early on, I don't have to worry about like getting a DUI. I don't have to worry about beating my wife because I'm drunk, or, it eliminates so much. But what I'm really getting down to is like the observation of the thing. And so getting hired on, I really, especially as the probie,
Sure.
you want to keep your mouth shut and your eyes open and your ears open.
Right.
And so my probationary period was really an incredible time for me to learn, not just like how to do the job practically, because like I said, I'd gotten my associates, I'd got my bachelor's, I had learned, I had gotten my Fire 1 and 2 certifications out of the way years before I got hired. So I already knew how to do the practical job.
Right.
What was new to me was like living with these men, like living with these adult men and women in the firehouse, running these calls and learning how to be a good roommate to them, learning how to make sure that I was pulling my weight. That was a big part of it too. And so I, through those observations, was able to identify those things that I thought, and again, it comes back to that question: am I the firefighter I would want on my crew?
Right.
If I were to step outside myself and look at myself, am I like, that guy's fit for the job, and that guy's courteous, and that guy cleans up after himself? And so it was like just, rapid fire to myself every day. Is this what the firefighter would do that I would want on my crew? Yes. Okay. Let's keep going. If not,
nice.
It's time to shore something up.
Right.
And,
so were you looking at like you can go in, how to, where to put the water, where to put the wet stuff on the red stuff, where to put an axe into a door or whatever, or where to cut into a roof or whatever. You knew the physical, practical things. It came down to then what to prioritize, what you know that you need to train on your off time, or on your downtime, even at the station. It came down to all the fringe things, and not so much the main bulk of the work, because you had that understood. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So like, there's only so many ways to pull a hose off a truck, right?
Right.
And like, once you nail those like 3 basic ways or whatever, it's pretty much not revolutionary after that. And so once I got the skills down, and I went through that technical school and they taught me all of that. So coming out of high school, I had that stuff dialed in,
right.
Which enabled me to hit the ground running in the academy. And so I shined in the academy because I'd already done all this stuff. I did that work on the front end. But the thing that was very new to me that they don't really talk about is all of the interpersonal skills. And that's in regards to like the people that I work with, but also the people that I serve. Because, as you know, and the people that are in public safety know, the people who are calling 911 aren't calling because they're having the best day.
Sure. Yeah.
And or have made the best decision. And so like it's up to us to show up in that complete servant mentality and be, gracious and forgiving and non-judgmental. So all of these things I was realizing were key elements of the other side of that coin. Like, could I kick down doors and pull hose and go upstairs? Hell yeah, I could do that all day long. But on the other side, again, it's like, so, make savage the body, civilize the mind.
Right.
There were some things that I wanted and felt that I needed to shore up in regards to the civilize the mind aspect of it. And that was definitely the interpersonal skills. And like I said, I grew up with older brothers. So, I was used to like getting teased and razzed and all that stuff. And all that stuff goes on in the firehouse. That's natural.
Sure. Yeah, there's natural. And there's that that odd sense of humor that, I mean, people in the first responder world have. There's that, that either a dark sense of humor or weird sense of humor that, when you're just with everybody, you're absolutely normal. When when you get all your families together, all the wives or whatever are looking at you like, what did you just say? And that sort of thing. And you're like, no, that's, and then you have to go, you're driving home and you're trying to explain, look, it was like this. See, this is what happened. Joey did this and we were, blah, 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 blah. So now we call him this because, and they're like, oh my gosh, you guys are so, I mean, I don't know how many times my wife has sit there and, we're just, making jokes back and forth or just, being at the house. And then I'll say something and she'll look at me and she says, I'm not one of the guys at work, right? Yeah. Oh, you're right. Sorry. I am sorry. You're right. You're not one of the guys at work. I cannot, your humor doesn't go that way sometimes. Yeah.
Right. And it's interesting. You brought up a good point because, we bond through these physical experiences that we have in the fire service and in the police force.
Right.
We bond through these physical experiences of the academy. We bleed, we sweat, we go to the point of exhaustion, and we do that together.
Yeah.
And it's very paramilitary, and those bonds are built in the military they do that for that reason. But the thing that's interesting, I feel like, is what makes us paramilitary is that not only do we do that, we make those bonds through that blood, sweat, and tears and all that, but I feel like a lot of times we neglect the bonding that we need to do on the flip side of that.
Yeah.
So like, again, civilize the mind, but make savage the body. Like we have the make savage the body part dialed in. Like there are clear lines for standards of performance and this and that, and, minimum company standard drills and all of that we expect you to perform at.
Yeah.
But then we're like, okay, here's your crew of 3 strangers or 3 to 4 strangers, and you're going to live with them for the next 20 years. And it's like, you have to navigate that kind of on your own. And honestly, I loved the idea of like taking the ownership of that and creating those experiences to bond. And so like early on, I would make just small invitations. Like, I work a 48-96 schedule. So I'm on for 2 days and then I'm off for 4. And so ultimately I work 10 days a month, right? For the fire department. And so on our 4 days, I would just put out that small little invite of like, hey, why don't we go see a movie? Why don't we grab lunch and go see a movie as a crew?
Right.
And some guys looked at me like I was a weirdo because they didn't do that with their crew.
Sure.
And some guys were looking at me like, man, I am really freaking hungry for this kind of stuff. Like, this is the thing that I got into the fire service for.
That's really cool.
And so those guys who are willing to do that, I've been able to build really strong relationships with. And, just like in any organization, private or public, you have the people who are like very cliquish. And we are very type A. And so there's a lot of ego here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes you just got to like let go of that ego, and understand that ego is the enemy. It's not going to help you better yourself in any way. Because if you already think you're the best at something, then where can you go from there?
Right.
There's really nowhere for you to go. If you truly believe like you're the best, I mean, and regardless of what you think of Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, if they were like, I'm the best and there's nothing more I can do, that's really not what made them special. What made them special was that in spite of people telling them they were the best, they still pushed. They still operated.
Right. They still went to practices. They still did.
Yep. They still did what it took to
Yeah.
level up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you see that with, anybody that's a high performer, whether it's musician or a sports guy or a, writer or anything like that.
Yeah.
You don't see them, once they've reached their pinnacle or whatever, if they have that solid drive or a solid work ethic or that je ne sais quoi, whatever it is, that makes them the best in the world that they are, they continue to play their instrument or they continue to do the menial, the fundamentals, those things that, okay, I got to keep doing this. I play the drums, and there are a lot of drummers out there. You see them warming up for shows. They have video for them in the backstage or whatever, and they're just doing what's called, they're doing their rudiments. They're doing their paradiddles and their, flams and their flamadiddles and everything else, and they're just playing these little things that you learn when you first start. And you're like, well, you're supposed to be the best in the world. Yeah, but you got to maintain the bottom line. You've got to maintain those fundamentals, because that's what they build on. Everything is built on your fundamentals. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether if you're a writer, if you're a firefighter, if you are a whatever, if you forget that spirit of first beginning, you are going to struggle even as you start getting better and better at what it is. Because if you don't remember where you came from, you're not going to know where you're going. And it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's totally the foundation of everything. And high performers understand that.
Yeah.
And so they accept the fact that this is basically an infinite game. And going off a little bit about sports analogies, it's easy to delineate or to quickly identify whether or not how well you've performed in the game, because you can measure, okay, well, how many shots did I make? How many shots did I take?
Right.
Did we win? Did we lose? There are numbers to help you with that.
Right.
But when it comes to public safety and firefighting, being a police officer, there's really no score, and it's basically like the infinite game. Like the idea is that you've got to just stay in it as long as you can.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to make sure that you're, mentally apt and that you're on top of your paramedic algorithms, that you don't make mistakes. You have to make sure that you're keeping on top of your algorithms that might be changing or the different standards. You have to make sure that you're physically keeping yourself at an optimal level so that you don't get injured, or so that you don't become a liability.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's that daily progression, like that thing where it's not like I get to eat once and I'm good for my life. Like I have to eat every day. I have to sleep every day. So I don't just get to bench 315 and then I'm good. Like I'm going to have to maintain.
Right.
And there's different categories you have to shore up too. So, being aware of that, I think, is crucial.
Right. There's you talking about that. You do things one time, you reach your pinnacle, you reach that one thing, or you eat one time or whatever, and you're done. And you say, hey, I've done what I need to do. There's no need for me to try any harder. But at what point are you going to look at that and say, because how many times have you done something and you're I'm really good at this, and you continue to do it, and you continue to do it that way. Either somebody figures out how you do it and they kind of stop you in that, or you get bored with doing that thing that same way, that one time. And because we're humans, we start seeing things, we get exposed to other things, and we find new things that interest us or whatever the case is. If you continue to do the same thing over and over again, you're never going to get better. You're never going to progress, and you're going to be stuck in that same cycle. And if you get stuck in a cycle, you're not going anywhere, because you're like on those bikes at the gym that people just get on and they don't really go anywhere with. So
right, exactly. That's a great metaphor. And we say it in the fire service often: complacency kills.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's like once, that complacency is rooted in routine. whether it's good or bad per se, but like, people get complacent. They come to work, they check off their truck, and then they kind of sit in a recliner. And it's like, if you start making that your routine, then there's your complacency setting in.
Right.
It's only until you introduce something new or different that helps, by definition, get you out of that complacency.
Right.
And breaks up your routine.
Yeah, exactly.
For the better or for the worse,
Yeah. So is that where the idea for the book came from? Is that, as you're going through this and you're going through these life lessons that you're going through, and you start meeting people that are goofy, and you start saying, I want to write a book on this. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I like asking questions, and honestly, growing up and going through school, it was me being willing to ask questions that helped bring me the most clarity in like every aspect of my life, personally, professionally, spiritually, all of it. Being willing to ask questions and seek those answers is what really helped me identify who I was and where I wanted to go. And so I got to the point where I was about, 2017. 2017 came around, and there was a statistic published where firefighter line of duty deaths were being surpassed by firefighter suicides. And I was like, what in the hell is going on? Because like, for me, this was my dream, right? Like this was my dream job. And I'm like, I couldn't, like that devastated me. It really like shook me. And I was like, okay, well then what did I do? I resorted to what I know. I started asking questions like, why is this happening? What is it that is causing this depression? And so you ask the question, you try to, you identify what it is you think, you do some research on it, maybe you change, your modality. But ultimately, I looked at the reasons why people were committing suicide in this profession that I love, and it came down to they felt alone, they felt ignored, they felt, there was a lot of things that kind of lended towards mental health. And it was like, okay, what is causing that thing that you're feeling alone? Like you're not feeling heard. And so I just kind of took steps back from that. And it was like the feeling alone shows me that there's a lack of brotherhood. Now, what does brotherhood mean? It's like a series of questions and answers. Well, brotherhood means this to me. Okay. Am I experiencing that where I'm at? No. Why am I not experiencing that sense of brotherhood? This is why. Because we're not holding people to a standard. Why aren't we holding people to a standard? Well, ultimately, it's because we're not holding each other accountable for the good or the bad.
Right.
And I felt like that was the baseline for every one of those tree branches that I was seeing. Every single one of those tree branches, I could trace it right back to the root of lack of accountability, for good or bad.
Right.
And a lot of people think that accountability is a bad word. I don't. I don't see it as bad or good. It's merely a tool to build, just like a hammer. Like I can kill someone with a hammer, or I can build a home.
Right. It's
it's just how I use it.
No, exactly. And the more that you look at your ability to do something and use it for good, the more you're going to find use for that. If you look at a hammer, you only see the 4 or 5 different ways you can kill somebody or whatever. You're missing the point. There's so many different things. You can put things together. You can take things apart. You can rebuild something. You can move something that needs to be moved, or, there's such a value of that. And if you limit yourself, once you limit yourself and you put those parameters on something, now you're at that point where you're getting into those things you were talking about, that depression, that way of being that just frustrates you or whatever, where you don't want to think about the ways out. You only want to think about that one way that says, hey, this seems to be your only option, because you're
to make it stop, basically.
Right. Because you're talking about your ego gets in the way, and it says, I can't, you got into this profession, And I don't care what profession it is. In your case, firework, my case, law enforcement, and anybody else out there that does any kind of first responder work. It's that thing that you got into this because you wanted to do this. They asked you that question when you get hired. Why do you want to do this? What's your why? Why do you want to be a, firefighter, police officer, something like that? And you answer the question with whatever your why is. If you say, hey, I want to help people, or I want to do something like that, that's one thing. But if you really want to do it, and then to go 15 years down the line or 10 years down the line or whatever, and say, you know what, this isn't causing me to want to kill myself now. You've got to ask the question. Right? Is this really what you want to do? And then, you have to reevaluate why you're doing what you're doing. And so,
absolutely.
And so that, and I'm guessing that's why you wrote. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. You brought up a good point, limiting yourself. And I feel like it's that stifling feeling that people feel like there's just no way out of, and with all the research that I've done, I've made it a point to learn something new every year. So every year since I've been hired, I've either taken a new class or obtained a new certification. In my years there, I've been able to get my certified personal trainer, my certified nutrition coach. I'm a peer fitness trainer. I was a SWAT medic. Like every year I've made it a point to learn something new.
That's cool.
And it's not like your organization isn't going to support you. Like
right.
They're a program. But the frustrating part is like, we tend to think that we're so limited, in like our progression. And it's like a lot of the time what we don't realize is that all we have to do is like step to the side and then keep going up.
Keep going. Yeah. Yeah. Step out from under that overhang. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just step out from underneath it and realize that you're only limited by what you allow yourself to be limited by. And so I felt that, stagnation. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, this is really frustrating. I'm really trying to provide these answers to, my peers. I was a certified peer support team member.
Right.
Like, I've been through resilience training, all of it. And I was like, wow, I really want to offer this to the people that I care about and the people that I serve with and the community that I'm a part of. And, some people just didn't want to hear it. And so what I decided that I needed to do is just like get off the island.
Yeah.
I had to get off the island, and then that's where the book came from.
Vote yourself off.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like some of these people just don't want to hear it because it's ego or, complacency or, that's the way we've always done it. And it's the joke, firemen hate two things, change and the way things are. And so it's like, what can I do? And
right.
So
that's the same thing in the police world, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. Why don't I just take a step to the right and just keep going?
Right.
And that really is where the book came from. Yeah.
That's cool. How can people get a hold of that book?
So it's on Amazon. It's got some tricky punctuation in it. So it's called Own It. Build a fire service culture of trust and integrity through accountability. It's kind of a long subtitle, but if you do a search for me or you go to my website, www.ignitedff.com, there's a direct link from there and it'll come right up, and you can get it in Kindle or you can get it on paperback. And I've heard the paperbacks show up really quick, because Amazon's like the miracle machine now. So
yeah. Cool. Yeah. And that's Ryan Rodriquez.
Yeah.
And just spelled the way it sounds. The common
spelling. Rodriq. I actually have a unique spelling because my family comes from Spain.
Okay.
So it's Rodriquez.
Okay.
But yeah. Yep.
And so how can people find more information about not just your book, but about you? Are you on any social media, anything like that?
Yeah, everywhere, basically. Ignited FF is my handle on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, across the board. So if you do a search for Ignited FF, I'm there. And then, like I said, the website, ignitedff.com, you can get links to like my store. I've got some shirts and some challenge coins. There's links to the podcast that I host. And there's links to the book. And so there's also a reading list. I host a book club too, because I love reading.
Sure. So, yeah. Always looking for my next book. I'm always looking for, so that's good.
There's a good list, man. So go check it out.
That's
I'll send
cool.
you the link to it.
Awesome.
But, Yeah, man, I appreciate coming on and letting me talk about my story and how this came to be. I really appreciate the work you're doing.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for coming on. I know it's kind of been a little bit shorter, but I know you were still working. You're in the middle of work, and you got to go do more making sure people are safe and serving other people.
Got to go teach the future.
And that's the awesome part of our profession, and just making sure that that's what makes you the hero that you are. So, hey, man, I thanks, and I appreciate you coming on. If we have anything else for you, you're welcome to come back on at any time. And if you write another book, we can go over that one too.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, anytime, man. There's a lot of principles out there to be learned, and I'm always eager to talk about anything and everything. And I know you're the same, so I appreciate it.
Yeah,
man.
No worries, buddy. Hey, you take it easy, and you have a great one.
Thanks, my man.
Recording stopped.
All right, man. That's perfect. Thank you.
Right on.
And Ryan Rodriquez has, so to speak, left the building. And, we're reminded of the things that he said, the things that he was talking about, how the number one killer of firefighters was suicide, and not the fires itself or the dangers of the job or things like that. But, these things that are holding people hostage in their own mind, and the way that they look at things, and the way that they hold on to the negative. And like he said, and he's talking about the reasons he wrote his book was just to own it, to take what it is that you have, the thing that you love. Don't let that thing cause a negative in you, but turn it around, own it, and say, no, I'm going to work on this so that I'm better, and it now works for me, and I don't work for it. I think that's such a powerful lesson that we can learn. And, I can't thank him enough for coming on, but, and I know that the interview is a little bit shorter. Like I said, he's working, he's got things to do. It's not easy for somebody like that, who has all these things that he just keeps doing, to just say, okay, hey, I'm going to shut down and go get on a podcast so I can sell my book. He doesn't care about that. He cares about serving his fellow man. And it's awesome to see people like that. That is what makes a hero. And that is why we have the podcast, to showcase people like that. And that's why it's actually fairly difficult to find people for this show, because they don't see themselves as heroes. They want to, people will ask me, well, what are we going to talk about? Well, you being a hero, and they say, well, but I'm not, or something along those lines. And so it's difficult for some people to come on and talk about it. But if I can get them, and they understand that what they do is heroic or whatever, but they see themselves as just regular people. And you find people like this who are busy working, busy doing the job, that they're humble enough, and they say, I'm not that way. And some people say, well, I'll talk about my career, things that I did do, and the failures in it. And that's perfect, because I'll tell you, that's who you are. That's what makes you you. That's what makes you the hero in which you are, is those failures, those imperfections, those little things that you want to struggle to continue doing. With that, I'm going to read a story here really quick. I'm going to keep on the theme of the firefighter, because that's what we're talking about today, is those heroes who, I always say, put the wet stuff on the red stuff. But to be honest with you, they do a fantastic job, and I can't say enough good things about them. They're good people. I'm a little biased too. My grandpa actually both my grandpas, my grandpa, my great grandpa, were both career firefighters. Why I didn't go into the fire service, I just didn't. However, I remember going home to my grandpa's house and seeing his fire truck. He'd always have it. He had a take home, and so it was a truck. It was because he was a captain. He would take that thing home, and he would have it parked on the side of the driveway. And we weren't allowed to be near it. We weren't allowed to go by it and play by it or anything like that. But it was always seen there, and you knew if it was there, he was home. If it wasn't there, he obviously wasn't home. And so that's how we remembered it. But it was one of those things that that is a solidly noble profession. Who else is going to run into that burning building and save that baby? That's just the general thought process of that. But in reality, those people are trained to go do that and make sure that you get out of that burning building. Because if you're surrounded by flames in your house, you wake up in the middle of the night or whatever the case is, that stuff spreads fast. And it is scary to be surrounded and not see a way out. And then all of a sudden you see somebody coming in there, coming to save your life. It is such a relief knowing that there's people out there that do that. So I'm going to read a story really quick, and it's a really good story, and we'll just get into it. It was a typical hot and sweltering Chicago day in August 1972 when the emergency call came over the radio for Jacob's firefighting crew to handle a small fire that had broken out in a downtown apartment building. They hustled, as always, to make it in record time. But even in a few minutes it took them to weave through the afternoon traffic, the small fire had grown to engulf the entire building. It was already looking pretty hopeless when we got there, says Jacob. By the time the 24-year-old fireman arrived on the scene, most of the 100 or so residents had already made it out of the blazing 7-story inferno. But the firefighters had to be sure everyone was safe. So Jacob and his partners hurriedly entered the building, clad in their fire retardant gear, busting down doors and checking for any remaining trapped tenants. It was a real old building in pretty bad shape, recalls Jacob. Whole floors were crumbling faster than we could even get to them. The roaring fire had started on the 5th floor before spreading throughout the rest of the building. Ladders enabled the firefighters to rescue residents on the top floors, but the 5th floor was too far gone to risk entering. They heard no screams or sounds, but they had no way of knowing without a physical check if there was anyone left in the 5th floor clinging to life. It was unreasonable for any firefighters to enter the 5th floor at that point, says Jacob, but I had a nagging feeling that there was still someone left inside. Finally, ground personnel who were busy taking names and trying to account for everyone in the building radioed the order to evacuate. It was way past the point of recklessness to be in there, recalls Jacob, and they assured us everyone was out. But suddenly, as Jacob and his colleagues came out of the front of the building, a young, frantic woman came running up to them, yelling at the top of her lungs, "My baby, where is my Chris?" Jacob's instincts had been correct. The woman who lived in apartment 529 explained that she had left her 7-year-old son, Chris, alone for just a few minutes while she went down the street for some groceries. And ground personnel could not account for Chris anywhere. I knew he was still in there, says Jacob. I could just feel it. And the fact that I hadn't heard him screaming or calling out signaled to me he was either in shock or had passed out from smoke inhalation. Either way, I knew we didn't have time to waste. Jacob and another firefighter made their way back up to the 5th floor while firefighters outside used ladders to look for any signs of life. The thick black smoke poured out of the windows and through the hallways. The heat inside had become so intense that it was about to overwhelm the firefighters' protective clothing. By the time Jacob and his partner made it up to the 5th floor, the fire had grown so fierce, neither one could see more than a few feet in front of them. Apartment 529 was engulfed in flames at the other end of the hall, and most of the floor was already impassable. My partner looked at me and gave me the thumbs down, says Jacob. As a fireman, I knew he was right. The chances of us surviving if we went down that hall were slim, let alone anyone finding that boy. I had been in situations like that before where I had to accept the loss, and I dealt with it. But I just kept seeing that mother's face in my head. I just could not walk away from this one. Impulsively, Jacob darted down the hall without his partner, disappearing into the flames. It was weird because the instant I made the decision to run down that hallway, a second later, it seemed I was in front of the door, and it was already ajar. As flames shot out of the apartment like fireballs, I could see a little boy lying on the floor in just about the only spot that was not on fire. I didn't even have time to figure out if he was alive or dead, says Jacob. I just grabbed him and rushed out. Jacob and the boy cleared the 5th floor, landing just as the firemen could hear the sound of the floor above crumbling. The tense crowd below broke into cheers as they saw Jacob emerge from the building with the boy. With Chris pressed up against his chest, Jacob could feel the boy's heart pounding, and when he coughed from the smoke, Jacob knew Chris would survive. Paramedics tended to the boy while Jacob himself collapsed. Jacob was a hero, but little did he know how his unselfish decision on that memorable day would affect his own life some 20 years later. 2 weeks after the rescue, Jacob had 2 visitors appear at the station, Chris and his mother, Maria. They had come to thank him and told him they were forever in his debt. They said they would repay me a life, says Jacob. I was pretty stunned. It was a nice gesture, but I figured they would soon go about their lives and forget about me. But Chris and Maria never did forget. Maria made sure her son visited Jacob at least one day every week after school. He would bring me food from his mom or a candy bar, just something to say thanks, recalls Jacob. But he did it just about every week, which amazed me. He didn't have a father, so I guess I kind of became a good influence on his life as well. After a few months, we really became friends. As the years went on, Chris continued his weekly visits. By this time, the two were spending time with each other outside of work as well. I used to take him to Cubs games and to a movie every once in a while, says Jacob. He was always a great kid. A few years later, Jacob married, started his own family, and left the fire department to start his own insurance company. Chris joined the Army, then went to college, but the two remained in touch, writing letters and talking on the telephone and still taking in a Cubs game at least once a year. Chris eventually graduated from college and became a teacher. At age 37, Jacob was diagnosed with diabetes, and despite treatments and diet, the disease began to deteriorate his kidneys until, by age 43, he was diagnosed with end-stage kidney failure. With 2 children in high school and his wife pregnant with a 3rd, it was not a good situation. I was really devastated, said Jacob. I'd saved a lot of people in my years as a firefighter, and after that, I was a pretty good husband and provider. But for the first time in my life, I was really scared, and I didn't know what to do. With no brothers or sisters, and his wife the wrong blood type, Jacob was forced to depend on a donor kidney from the bank of available kidneys. Just when he needed it most, none were available. I really didn't know where to turn. That's when I got Chris's call. It was time for Chris and Jacob to take their yearly baseball game. And so, expecting a day at the park, Chris called only to hear that Jacob was on his deathbed. I answered the phone and I remember thinking, I didn't want to tell Chris what happened, but my wife said it would be wrong to keep it from him. I barely got the words out when he asked me what my blood type was. I told him and he'd said he'd call me right back. As Chris contemplated his friend's unfortunate situation, his thoughts kept returning to that faithful moment years earlier when he looked up and saw his hero, Jacob's face, as the flames roared all around him. He knew had it not been for Jacob, he would not be alive today. Now Chris could finally repay the favor. He knew what he had to do. Within an hour, Chris was at Jacob's doorstep with a life-saving message. He comes to the door and says, "It's your lucky day. I'm the same blood type, and I'll bail you out of this one," remembers Jacob. I was in shock, and he says, "I've got 2 kidneys, and you can have one." At first, Jacob resisted putting his young friend through the trauma of having a kidney removed. But when medical tests confirmed Chris would be the perfect donor, and with time running out, Jacob accepted his generous offer. I really had nowhere else to turn. He told me he loved me like a father, and it was the least he could do for me. The operation was a perfect success. Jacob says we're even now, says Chris. But the truth is, he was there all my life to help me make decisions and give me guidance and support. I'm just glad there was something I could do to pay him back for saving my life. Jacob and Chris both went on to live happy, healthy lives in Chicago. Chris became an English teacher. Jacob retired and devoted many years to volunteering his time as a counselor for inner-city programs for underprivileged children until he passed several years ago. Best of all, Jacob and Chris kept their special promise to go to a Cubs game every year. And I just thought that would be a great story, just kind of end this one on to, I know it's a shorter episode, but it's one of those things that we never forget who our heroes are. We never forget those people that sacrifice for us. We never forget what it is that we can never forget what it is we owe those who sacrifice so much for us. And that story kind of puts that back in perspective, that everything you do, that smallest little pebble you drop in that pond, all those ripples, they go somewhere. And everything you do in this life affects somebody else some way. So if you have the opportunity to affect somebody in a positive way, do it. Because you never know how it's going to come back to you. It's the same thing that Ryan was saying earlier today. That's the same thing that I say all the time, is if you have the opportunity to help somebody, you never know how rewarding that service will be, not just to yourself, but to other people. So with that, I do want to remind everybody that you can find every episode of the What's a Hero podcast on our website. You can find links to podcast platforms that host our podcast, and you can find that at the What's a Hero podcast.buzzsprout.com. Get every episode there. You can stream it on there, or you can go to those platforms. You can download it. Downloading is cool. It helps us. It lets me know who's listening and where you guys are listening from. And I know you can get it for streaming, but download that baby and have it forever. So it's my gift to you. Nevertheless, you can also find us on every social media platform, Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter and all those guys. And go there, contact us, talk to us, ask us questions, do what you got to do. But it's absolutely appreciated by you guys doing that, knowing that you're out there. It helps me know that you guys are out there. I like to hear from you. Know that you guys are appreciating this. If there's things you think I should change, or things I should do differently, or people that you know that are heroes that you'd like me to talk to, ask me about them. Ask me to reach out to them. Ask them if they're willing to come on, and we can get in touch with them. That would be awesome. So appreciate it. I'd want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to be those heroes for other people, that we are doing everything we can. Those of us that are in the first responder world, that emergency services, things like that, you have to remember that you are responsible, not just for yourself, but for your brothers and sisters next to you, that you need to be doing something to take care of yourself. And if you're taking care of yourself, you're going to be able to take care of other people. It's that same idea of put your oxygen mask on before you put somebody else's on. That's going to make the difference. And how do you do that? You work out every day. You find some kind of combat sport to train in, or you do something. As people get older, being able to go and, play tackle football or catch game of basketball or whatever may not always be the most optimal thing you can do. But you can do jujitsu, you can do karate, you can do boxing, and you don't have to go out there and just beat the tar out of each other. You can do it under controlled circumstances enjoy it. You're also going to be able to use those skills in the world in which you are working in. And I'm talking about that ability to defend yourself or defend other people while you are doing your job. You're in the first responder world, like I talked about. But don't forget that you need to take care of yourself. Be working out. Read some books so you can have some knowledge in your head. Like he was talking about, like Ryan was saying, you need to be able to make the body savage, but make the mind strong as well. Don't be one without the other. So you have to read books. You want to become better? And I'm not just talking better at a thing, but a better version of you. Read books. See what the masters that came before you did, the people that are no longer with us that had gathered all this information and put it down on paper. There's lots of books. And I was asked this before, what are some good books that I would suggest? And I'll tell you some of the really good books that I've been reading lately, some of the things that I'm putting in my brain. Obviously, you've got the on combat, on killing books that I've talked about when I've had Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman on. You've got When That Day Comes by Chris Hoyer, fantastic book. When Violence is the Answer. Two of my favorite books, two books that I'll go through over and over again, are Extreme Ownership and The Dichotomy of Leadership by Jocko Willink. Those are great reads. You really want to change some stuff in your brain, the way you think about things, the angles that you look at things. Get a hold of those books. Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Great book. There's a book called About Face by Colonel David Hackworth. That book, it chronicles Colonel Hackworth as he's known by Hack, but from the time through the end of World War II up through after Vietnam. And he was in the Army the whole time. During those times, he was actually pretty young in World War II. And he chronicles that whole time, how he developed things, how he led his men, the things that he did. And some of it's James Bondy. But some of the stuff you're trying to figure out, this really happened, and yeah, it really happened. Great book. Another really fantastic book is called Turn the Ship Around by David Marquette. This was almost the quintessential leadership book before Extreme Ownership. So before Extreme Ownership came out, Turn the Ship Around was the book that people would go to and say, "Oh, this is how you do it," because it's based off of a leader concept, not a leader follower concept. He was a sub commander, David Marquette was, and he kind of goes into detail on that and things. And it's such a good book, learning leadership lessons by actually how he did it and what he did. That's another top notch. Turn the Ship Around by David Marquette. Hal Moore's book on leadership, great book. Call Sign Chaos by Jim Mattis. One Bullet Away by Nathaniel Fick. Really good book on leadership by see how a Navy officer, or not a Navy officer, but a Marine officer just starts from school and just figures out, hey, this is what I want to do. And he goes and becomes a good leader in the Marine Corps. Solid. There's another book, and you guys might remember this gentleman. His name was Dick Winters. He was a major. And if you've ever seen the show Band of Brothers, Major Dick Winters was the primary character, and he wrote several books, and he wrote the stories that they talk about in regards to Band of Brothers. But he was also known for the way that he treated his men, the way he led his men, the respect that they had for him, the way that he treated other people, because that's who he was. So there's a book, he has Conversations with Major Dick Winters. Really good book. And I just zoomed through because it was so interesting. Obviously, like I said, the On Combat, On Killing, On Spiritual Combat, The Bulletproof Marriage, all by Dave Grossman. Great books. I mean, I just can't, say enough good things about them. Another really good book that I like that is just helpful for, people that want to do more and look at things from a different angle is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. He has actually several books out, but The War of Art, fantastic book. Sovereignty by Ryan Michler, really good book. Another one is 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. And another book that I'm actually going to go through, I'm going to try to go through, I talked to the author of, unfortunately, it appears that he's suffering from some Alzheimer's, and they haven't been able to, he hasn't been able to kind of be better, but I think I'm going to go through his book because this guy's just a fantastic, he's got a great story, and it's Through My Eyes by a guy named Bob G. Whitworth, and it's during his time in Vietnam that he kind of chronicles the whole thing, and who he became because of that, how he did what he did. And he would talk about his favorite thing to do was throw grenades, because he couldn't get enough grenades, get rid of those things. So it's a great book. Check it out, Through My Eyes, and I'll see if I can. We'll do a podcast on that book, see if we can talk about some of the stuff that Bob had gone through. The Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. That has just so many good things in it. I can't say enough things. There's so many lessons learned on that one that people today are still using, and it chronicles his time in a Nazi concentration camp, losing his wife and all this different stuff, and trying to figure out what is the meaning of life and the process that he went through to get that. It's fantastic. There's another book called Endurance, great book. One of my favorite books that I've ever read is called Wild at Heart by a guy named John Eldridge. And it really, I can't say enough good about that book because it really helps a man understand why they were made to do what it is that they do on this planet. So, and where the basis for that is. So, Wild at Heart by John Eldridge. And those are just a small number of books that I read, but I can't say enough good about those books. And obviously there's more, but if I were to say I have a top 10, I can't pull a top 10 out because there's not just 10 books out there, right? Every time you read one, something else will come up. So check those out. If you have an opportunity, if you're a reader, those are great books just to change your view on some things and help you kind of figure out how you can go about helping other people and doing that sort of thing. So, and as Ryan was talking about, the suicide being such a hard thing in fire service and first responders in general, I know it's a thing with law enforcement. If you or somebody is suffering or contemplating or having a hard time with that, there is help for everybody. There's so many different people that want to help our first responders, and not just people who, they man a hotline or something like that, but they're actually first responders who are willing to speak to you because they know what you're going through. And I'm talking your police officers, your firefighter, an EMT, a veteran, things like that. You can call the helpline, which is 1-866-676-7500. You can call Copline, which is an international law enforcement officers hotline, basically an officer's lifeline, at 1-800-COPLINE. That's 1-800-267-5463. Because cops understand cops and what we've been exposed to. And these guys can help you figure it out, whether you're active duty or retired and feel like no one understands what you're going through. They want to help you. Or if you just want to, if you're not sure, you can call the Suicide Prevention Alliance, which is in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and they're at 717-585-0611. Just understand that without you doing what it is you do and I'm talking to my first responders, our firefighters, our paramedics, our police officers, dispatchers, veterans, even teachers and nurses. But without you guys doing what you do, without you taking care of yourself to be able to do that, people are not, this world's going to continue to go downward. And if we look at it, you know, the way that whatever the media wants to portray, saying everything is dire and we're changing this, and everybody says, oh, we're doing it for the better, and everybody knows better. If we don't take care of ourselves, we're not going to be able to take care of each other. And I mean each other as in everybody else on this planet, taking care of the person to our left and to our right. Because that is what we're on this planet to do. Help each other out. So take care of yourself. If you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling to that point where you don't see any resources, you don't see a way out, and you see suicide as being an option, reach out to those folks that I just mentioned. If you are solid and you know what you're doing, you know what your mission is, and you understand your why, and you continually go after it and get after it, you work out to make sure you're safe and you're solid to be able to take care of it and help people next to you. Awesome. More power to you. However, you need to be reaching out and you need to be sharing and helping others with their load. So if somebody's struggling, somebody's not making it, you need to make sure you have a built relationship with this person and reach out to them and ask them if they are okay. Ask them if they are doing well. And if you see them acting a little bit out of sorts, you need to speak up. If you don't do it, who's going to do it? It's just like anything else. If you don't step up, if you don't say something, who's going to say it? The next person? What if there is not a next person? What if that next person doesn't have that skill that you have, or they're not in as good of a place as you are? You have to take care of yourself so you can help take care of others, help carry their burden. And I'm not saying forever, and I'm not saying we enable people, but if somebody's struggling, we got to get them help. So remember, you can think of yourself as that last line of defense and make sure that you are that person if that's what you need to be. If not you, then who? If not me, then who? So I want to thank all you guys for listening, and I appreciate everybody that does do that. To our firefighters, thank you guys so much for all you do, all the work you do, making sure you are prepared to help each other out, help us out, keep us safe, pull us out of burning buildings, whatever the case may be. We appreciate you and we thank you for it. Our EMTs, I remember hearing somebody say one time, hey, we don't have health care, blah, 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 all this different stuff. If you are laying in the side of a ditch somewhere, all somebody has to do is call 911. What's going to happen? Somebody's going to show up and they're going to put you in the back of their truck and they're going to take you to the hospital. And that you don't have that in other countries. There's some countries that you don't have that. And can you trust that somebody's going to pick you up and take you to the hospital? Or do you know that they may take you somewhere else, take a kidney out, throw you in a bathtub full of ice? Who knows? Whatever the case is, we live in a great place that has solid people that will take care of us, that will go out of their way to be professionals and give us that care that we need. So thank you to our EMTs out there, our police officers, same thing. Everybody's trying to say this or that, or, there's big retirements and there's people leaving and there are people wanting to get out of the business altogether. But I can't stress it enough that without you doing your job, we would be in a world of hurt. We would not live in a place that we do. And you have the option. You say, well, the place I live in is, whatever. It's full of crime or whatever. Well, you have the option to move if you want. You have that freedom. Now, financially, I don't know your situation, but what I'm saying is that you live in the best country in the world that affords you the ability to move somewhere else where it is safer. And we have enough statistics to determine where that safe place is that you want to live, where that place is that you want to raise your kids. But without our police officers doing their job in every corner of this country, we wouldn't have that ability. So thank you guys so much for everything you do. And that goes for our border patrol and our Secret Service guys and our DEA agents and everything else like that. You guys, thank you so much for everything you do. And our veterans, you can't say enough good stuff. I cannot say enough good stuff. And I don't have the words sometimes to say it, but you're on the front line. You're putting your life on the line to make sure that we live in the best country in the world, that we have the country that we do have. So thank you so much. And our teachers and our nurses, you guys work tirelessly. You're home. You're tired. You give 100% at work. You give less than 100% at home because you are tired. But then you realize, you know what? What am I working for? I'm working for these people that need me. So then it turns into that 100% all the time. You need to understand that you need these things as well. You need the breaks. You need the time to rejuvenate yourself and all that stuff like that. So take care of yourself as well. We need you guys out there because you do a fantastic job. Thank you so much. So for Ryan Rodriquez, I have been Ken Frownfelter, and this has been the What's a Hero podcast. We are clear.